But continue. You were talking about Santana, and I absolutely love Santana. I'm a huge fan. I'm also a huge fan of Latino music, which is why I asked you that question.
Oh, right on.
But
Yeah.
yeah, go ahead.
Um, so the question regarding my incorporation of Latino music based on my Mexican heritage, and like I said, I think I I have a, you know, like a love for where I come from in terms of that being sort of a part of my underlying, like, I guess DNA if you want.
Hmm.
But at the same time, when I when when I longed for music, it was not gente. When I
Okay,
longed for
right.
music, it was Slash.
Yeah,
It was
yeah.
Jimmy.
And
So,
there's nothing wrong with that, you know? That's cool.
yeah, and I feel some familial, like having seen my how it's sort of this unifying thing with my dad and his sisters and everything like that.
Hmm.
That is totally unique to their experience, and maybe that had like a, like the the group of brothers that made up the Beach Boys or whatever.
Right,
I
right,
mean,
right.
Beach Boys were one thing.
Right.
This is different, but at the same time, I think that just like with the Beach Boys, you're not going to get that same combination of people together. I didn't really have that, but I could get together. I mean, I still get together with when I go to my parents
Yeah,
for events or whatnot. And my brother will pick up a guitar and I'll pick up a guitar and my dad will pick up a guitar and we're
yeah.
all, we do that somewhat. And we have a couple of songs that we play and they're more like kind of contemporary rock songs, but it's the heritage specific related to kind of expressing what I grew up with is just really difficult because I spent so much time really crafting my sort of my rock thing that I
Right,
didn't
right.
really connect with my Mexican side.
Hey, and it's never too late if you ever want to like swing that way. But
Right, right.
I just grew up with everything, and the one like rock touched you, but of course I grew up with R&B and all of that stuff. But Latino music, it's you know, it's kind of like the same with R&B and the black culture, the Latino culture. We grew up with music
Hmm.
and dance and
Yeah.
all the rhythms are intense, and we love anything that has to do with rhythms and melodies and syncopated rhythms and stuff like that. So that's why I took to it. Um, um,
See, and if like say for instance, if I learned like because the Mexican boleros, they're very slow song. They're talking about longing. They're
mhm,
talking about loss,
mhm.
the loss of the. So that's really not my,
Exactly.
I like I what you're connecting with when you think of like the Latin rhythms and stuff like that. That's like a Tito Puente, like
Yeah,
that kind of thing.
yeah, the
Yeah,
up
definitely.
tempo stuff. That's what I'm
Yeah,
into the up
see,
tempo stuff.
right. And I
Yeah.
probably like, I probably, if that were more of kind of like what I would, I mean, obviously I grew up with listening to Santana, but
Right.
Santana, I feel like I put Santana on the same platform as I would Stevie Wonder,
Yeah.
like
Right.
where,
Yeah.
so I could totally go into Black Magic Woman and Oyo
Right.
Como Va, but that's really not. I like the sort of the really like connected part of like the when I think of like Mexican music is more the sort of like the
Right.
really romantic stuff.
And his wife is a drummer, which is awesome.
Cindy Blackman, yeah, she is amazing. Yeah, I remember when she was the drummer for Lenny Kravitz when he did the Are You Gonna Go My Way?
Yes. Yes, I remember that, and
Yeah.
I love me some Lenny. Okay,
Yeah, there you go.
so I'm into it all though. I love Slash. First time I heard Slash, I was like, "Who is that?"
Yeah, he's incredible. I've gone through one of my projects recently was to go through the whole first Guns N' Roses album and just learn every
Mhm.
lead and every lick and every, and just really gain this appreciation for
Mhm.
what he put together. And it's what's great about it is that it's all deep rooted in blues
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
how he calls those riffs and those licks, but he's
Right.
doing them with such like, you know, what do they call that? Like fluency.
Yeah. Yeah.
You could
Yeah.
tell it's just so it comes just natural to him. I think they become a voice, they become his phrases, they become his language in ways that I don't know that I've heard from really many other guitar players, and I think that's what sets him apart.
Yeah. I watched him perform a few times. Like I may not be able to name every rock song or metal song out there, but when I hear it, I like it. You know,
Yeah.
so I'm open to just about everything. You know,
Ah, nice.
um, well, that's the way I was raised. My parents was open to everything, so they kind of just instilled that in me. But um, so you kind of like answered number. Well, never mind about the number. But the next question you kind of answered it. So when you was a teenager, you was mostly inspired by. Were you inspired by your dad
Yeah, well,
or your
uh,
mom? No, your
what's
brother.
fun,
Your
what's
brother.
really interesting, all of the above.
Okay.
And one of like my dad would I could tell when he started to kind of like get into music, my
Mhm.
ears perked up.
Okay.
And
Okay.
so that really kind of informed some of I would kind of think like, all right, if my dad likes it, because my dad's a very gruff, he's got a
Okay.
very gruff exterior. So
Okay.
when something is sort of like getting him out of it, you kind of pay attention, like, oh, what is that? And so, um, and the times where he'd sing along and stuff like that really that connected that type of music to, with me. I saw that and was like, oh, I'm really interested to hear why he connected with it. My mom, it's really interesting. So she never played an instrument or sang or anything like that, but it's funny. So they celebrated their 50th anniversary recently,
Oh,
and so
cool.
my
Congratulations.
yeah, my mom was like, I said, hey, okay, so we're gonna throw you a party. Like, what do you want? She's like, cold duck. And I go, what? And she's like, yeah, there's this band that's in, that's in the LA area,
Mhm.
and they play 60s and 70s like funk R&B covers,
Yeah.
the horn section and all.
Okay.
And so she's like, yeah, I saw them and they're just, they're so good. And
Yeah.
she was just like, I'm like, for your 50th anniversary, and this is like what you're asking for. I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
okay, it's like that. My mom is that connected with music.
Yeah.
I tend to discount it because my dad's so much more of a musical voice and the fact that
Mhm.
he's played and the fact that he sings and stuff like that. But my mom's sense of enjoyment, I think, also connected me with music in that, like, just this, she was always interested in what I was doing musically. If she saw, some instrumentation, there's that joke about like, yeah, yeah, your mom likes everything that you do. So
Right.
she's a,
Okay.
but it's nice though, because there's people whose mom was really never involved
Exactly. Yeah.
in connecting with music with their kids. So,
Right.
I'm
Right.
really thankful
Right.
for that.
Yeah.
But yeah, but it was my brother who, he was a person who brought home Appetite for Destruction.
Oh,
He
yeah.
showed me, and through him his friends as well. They saw that I had eyes as big as dinner plates anytime that they had a new CD or something like that. And music was different in the sense that you were if you didn't have a CD, or if
Uh-huh.
you didn't have a tape, or if you didn't
Uh-huh.
have a vinyl or an 8 track. We had 8 tracks too, by the way. It's just I I was listening to 8 tracks. But but if you didn't have any of that and you were relegated to radio or
Uh-huh.
singing it your damn self, because it's
Right.
not like now where you have streaming services and
Exactly.
no Spotify, no, none of that. So yeah, so I my brother was sort of my vehicle for being exposed to new music. And then when I got into high school, it was all my friends that had, all these other influences that I'd never heard of. And that was just
Mm-hmm.
amazing to sort of experience and get from them.
So your instruments are your guitarist, drummer, bass player.
And bass player, yeah.
Now, do you sing?
Um, I I can sing, I can't write.
Okay.
And so if I compose anything, I'm kind of out. I can't, I wouldn't be able to like put lyrics to what I whatever I like, if I put together
Okay.
like a musical idea on guitar or bass, I can't accompany it with my voice.
But it sounds like you took to these instruments really uh, fast. I mean, how did you learn to play so quickly? I mean, did you practice every day?
Yeah, and I sucked for a long time.
I still
So
suck.
me too. My my you know my dad used to come home from work and he'd hear me play and he'd say stop, and I'd say what, and he's practice scales. And I did it
Okay.
for a long time. I learned by ear
Right.
and lots of trial and error.
Mhm.
Much to anybody who is in listening distance,
Mhm.
I feel so bad for them. When I first started any of the instruments, it was, really, really hell,
Yeah.
because particularly if you if I hear somebody who's going through it now, I have a little bit more patience for it, because I go, okay, yeah,
Right.
you're going through it. But
Mhm.
um, my dad was so picky, not just picky, but he can hear. So
Mhm.
like, say for instance, if someone's playing something, he can select what harmony that he would want to sing over it
Okay.
without it being there.
Wow.
So he's got an ear for all that stuff. So I can
Yeah.
imagine that he was just sort of wanting to sort of pull his eardrums out of his head. So, but a lot of it was just, I had a CD player and I would have a stack of CDs because I would take them out of the case and then put them in. And
Mhm.
then when I was done with that one, I would just sit it on top of the CD player and put the next one on. Uh,
Cool. That's
you know,
that's good strategy right there, though.
so yeah, and then you play something and then you hit the rewind. So like
Yeah.
the rewind function on the
Mhm.
CD player was pretty much like you could tell that it was the button that I'd pressed the most.
Cool. That's well, I mean, you can still practice that way actually. Although you just go to YouTube and got slow motion, so that helps.
Well,
Um,
actually, there's a couple of different ways you can do it using a DAW, but we'll
oh
nerd
yeah,
into it. Like,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. We can nerd into that. So you're currently in a band now, right?
Well, kind of. So right now we're on hiatus. We were on hiatus for a couple of years due to, the vid.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
but but vid things kind of continued to prevail. We had mentioned getting things back going again.
Mhm.
Um, you know, uh, filling some of the roles in the band that were vacated from before. Um, we were playing as just a two-man, so essentially, like, I was playing drums, my
Mhm.
counterparts playing guitar and singing, and it would just work. I mean, it's kind of like Royal Blood. I don't know if you've seen them before, but
Mhm.
that's like the bass player plays bass and he's got like an octavizer, so
Mhm.
his bass like fills the other part of the register and the drummer, and basically it's kind of like a white white stripes kind of thing too.
Okay. I
They did
like
this kind of the
them.
same
I
thing.
like them.
Yeah. But yeah, so that's we're hoping to start that back up. I'm basically sitting back waiting for a phone call.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, if you have the desire and they want it, you guys will get right back and pick up where you left off. You know.
Yeah. Oh, well, what's funny about this? So I've been in this group in one form or another since 2008.
Mhm.
So we're essentially bonded by just all that time.
Mhm.
And so it's a couple of rehearsals and we're back into it. So yeah, I mean, the songs don't change.
Mhm.
We basically just sort of, all right, we're kind of locked into it. My friend has like a rough estimate of what the set list would be. All he has to do is sort of start playing the riff and then we're boom, right into it.
Nice. Now, when you guys were gigging, um, has anything funny or hilarious happened to you while gigging? Anything?
One of the stories I like to tell, and if he's listening, Jason, sorry, but I'll throw you under the bus a little bit. So we had a situation where the bass player and the singer were not really, they didn't see eye to eye on a lot of things. In particular, they just came from different like aspects. So the singer has sort of this visual component of what like I mean, he's the main songwriter, so realistically all of the music like, and he's very musical, so it's not like that's lacking, but
Mhm.
the time spent like kind of working on guitar stuff, he would sort of like imagine, all right, well, this is what I want things to look like on stage, which is also very important. And also, how you come across is, going to matter when it comes to it's just business sense. It's not just about the music, although the music is, one of the, the number one component.
Mhm.
And we were already a pretty formidable outlet already, but there was some not, I wouldn't say misunderstandings. There's just some like incongruities, if you want to
Okay.
call them that, like where
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
just you could tell that they were not enjoying their time together in the band
Mhm.
and not seeing eye to eye, and the communication was just strained. And so at some point we did this we had uh one show where the singer slash guitar player had forgotten an entire part of the song. And so the bass player reacted, and which is a big no-no for me. Like, if
Okay.
you're on stage, everything is beautiful and
Right.
we meant
Right.
everything. And even if you know whatever happens, I mean, I've been on some of the bigger stages that I've played where the house kit
Mhm.
was not well taken care of,
Right.
and as
Right.
I'm playing, the kit is radiating from me, and I'm having to sort of pick or pull all of the pieces of the drum kit back together. And so, and not to, nobody's. I'm not sitting there going like, "Hey, did you just see that? Hey guys, look at my drum kit. I just put it back together because." So, anyways,
Or like,
so the
where's the carpet?
right, yeah. House of Blues, where's your carpet, idiots? Anyway, so but I mean, the thing is that all of it's like a fantastic learning experience. I mean, we had strangers chanting our name when we were
Yeah.
playing that show. So, I mean,
So did he lose it?
so anyway, so he kind of, when he was on stage, he's like sitting there going like, really? And I counted him into the next part, right? And I'm just like, and he's like shaking his head, and I'm just like, all right, dude, you gotta like, I understand, but I I'm not gonna have that. And so we get around to playing this other show, and it was known that, I mean, there's some parts where you have to sort of pay to play, and
Mhm.
they are in they're like 40 miles away from me, so they're in completely different towns.
Uh-huh.
And closer to where they're at, we're playing this metal show. And so it's a battle of the bands kind of thing.
Oh
And
yeah.
we're sort of on the hook to have to sell tickets. And my friend is like, well, I don't know if I'm going to be able to sell stuff. We're like, we'll help, but try to do what you can, And so I was able to, on my side of things, I was able to invite enough people where I was, I was able to take care of mine. And it wasn't like a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So the time comes and I'm like, okay, we need to collect the money in order to give to the promoters so that, they put us on the bill.
Right.
And so he goes, oh, wait, uh, they actually, why do they want it before the show? And it's like, well, they had us sell tickets. Like, and
Mm-hmm.
he's just like, oh, yeah, I didn't sell all of them. And
Oh
we're like,
wow.
okay. So, I mean, it's kind of mandatory. Like, he's like, oh, if I would have known that, then I would have. It was just one of these things where you could tell it's like, all right, you're not on the same page. You're not
Mm-hmm.
willing to,
Mm-hmm.
put us into a position to be successful. Obviously,
Mm-hmm.
this isn't your commitment. And I'm at this point, I'm just like, in my head, I'm thinking, if you don't quit, I'm gonna fire you.
Mm. Wow.
And so, anyways, when we get to, but he was being very cagey about it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so at this point we get to the show and we're not sure whether he's going to show up or not.
Oh wow.
And we're basically just like sitting there going like, all right, this um yeah, I mean, it was just one of those strange moments where we were like, oh great, this is, and we're not sure how to talk to him because we're really just upset about this whole thing. And,
Mm-hmm.
we're like, okay, I don't want to not because we have this momentum. We have a lot,
Mm-hmm.
we could play in front of a lot of people. We have a good, we don't have a great set time, but we have a decent enough set time that we're not like the last person, the
Right.
last band or anything like that. So it comes around to it. He shows up and we're like,
Mm.
oh God, thank you. And
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
well, not thank you,
But yeah.
a different set of words, but
Right. Got you.
we're like, okay, so then anyway, so I go and talk to him because I have the least amount of friction with him.
Mm-hmm.
And he goes, yeah, I I hate to, be the bearer of bad news, but this will be my last show with the band. And I'm thinking, yes, all right. Like knocked out two birds with one stone. Like he could totally fill in where, like he could play the show. We're
Right.
not doing this like as a two man, and this is his last show, and he calls it out. And so we're like, all right, this is great. So then, anyway, so that alleviated so much. And by
Yeah.
that point, because we had been there for hours, just seeing some of the bands that we're on and just kind of getting a sense of what we were going to be playing.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had to go to my car, get all my stuff out of my, sort of wheel into the venue. So, I mean, it's, getting drums out of cases is such a
I know.
bear. I mean,
I
and I
know.
was driving like a little, like I was driving a Mustang. So having to
Okay.
pull the
Ugh.
six, or yeah, was I playing six piece? But having to pull all of the kit, out of it's
Yeah.
just a chore. And so, I mean, it was so elated. I didn't even feel any of like that, like, I was like, all right, let's go, let's do this before he changes his mind or somebody looks at somebody like the wrong way.
Right.
And it ended up being like probably one of the most spirited shows that he played with us. Like
Wow.
he really like had fun on stage, and it was sort of cathartic
Yeah.
because we were just sort of like in that thing and we were playing, like I locked in with him. And he's a bass player, right? So bass and
Right.
drummer, like we were just, yeah, so it was great. I
So
mean,
you
that,
guys are like, let's jam. We don't have to see each other ever again.
right, exactly. Yeah, so
That's
that was a lot of fun. And I really call to that point and just sort of like, being in a band, but also, you got to stand your ground and you got to like put your feet down when
Right.
when they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing, and you just got to be really, I mean, I was trying to be as diplomatic with it as
Yeah.
possible. His beef was with the other guy, and
Mhm.
if it were just he and I playing, I think we would have probably, been able to not even have been in that situation. But,
Right.
I I had my preferences first and foremost to my friend who I'm loyal to, and second of all, like that's the guy who like has the voice and writes the songs, and
Mhm.
I mean, I I'm out to lunch if, he's not around. So
Wow, but great story. I love hearing band stories. I used to do the band thing years ago, and we went through some weird stuff. But
oh yeah. I
um,
mean, having that many personalities together, there's always some crazy thing.
hmm
Yeah.
we have this thing in my hometown where all these festivals, ethnic festivals, get together all year round, from Festa Italiana to Mexican Fest, um, you name it, Greek Fest,
Oh,
Polish
that's awesome.
Fest, and my band showed up completely drunk, every member,
Oh
and I mean,
no.
so inebriated that um, they could barely perform. It
Wow.
was trash, pretty
Yeah,
much.
right.
But I was like, but everybody else was drunk in the audience, so hopefully it sounded musical, right?
Right. The more you drink, the better I sound.
Hey, everything looks good and sounds good when
That's
you're
right.
that
That's
way.
right.
But since you're a guitarist, I'm gonna throw a couple of, we got to entertain the nerds, so I'm gonna
Right?
throw a
Okay.
couple of nerd questions. So let's nerd out. Uh, how do you record your guitars? Do you use a mic on the cabinet, DI, or reamping?
So what's interesting is I'm a huge fan of uh like the sound of amp based, just the sound of the head, right? And the
Yeah.
characteristics that you get from from a really solid combination of guitar pickup, and
Mm-hmm.
then if there's like a pedal involved, it's got to be really good because I just want that pure sound of that amp head. And so what's interesting is that now I have all of these uh amp simulators, and they're getting good, and they're getting like to the point where it would take a lot for me to actually decide to record some amps. Like I have some
Yeah.
classics. I have this like Fender Bassman. I have a Marshall
Yeah.
ACM 800, like
You have
just
nice gear. Really
right.
nice gear.
And but what I'm finding is that, working so in collaborations, if someone asks, hey, um my first and foremost thing is to just sort of reach for an amp simulator.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there are cases where I'll want to actually record, a uh, an amp, a mic'd amplifier,
Mm-hmm.
but um, the effort in doing so, particularly because I'm on the third floor of an apartment building. So
Okay.
if I had like a basement, if I had a freestanding house where
Mm-hmm.
I could annoy the neighbors for 30 minutes and it wouldn't bother, because they're
Yeah.
kind of removed from them,
Mm-hmm.
in terms of a wall, then that'd be fine. But I'm just in such a place where it's really difficult for me to go somewhere. But if I were to have a studio, I think I'd probably opt for the amp sims unless I was looking for something specific that I couldn't get from an amp sim.
Okay. So favorite guitar FX plugins, IRs.
I am okay, so my effect plugin, I'm historically, like in the times that I was in bands as a guitar player,
Mm-hmm.
I used a delay like a crutch,
Okay.
and it was bad. And every time I listen to old stuff, I'm just like, oh God, really? You're gonna do the delay intro again? Oh, loss. you lose. So I try to actually think of guitar intros that don't have,
That.
these that U2, the Edge from U2
Mm-hmm.
when he's doing that, like
Mm-hmm.
Dave Gilmour does it in, Run Like Hell. It's that same sound. It was so fun. It was so cool. Like I think my first exposure to that was Big Sur Moon from Buckethead. And
Okay.
he does this really cool thing about it, and I learned it, and I was like, "Oh, that's the coolest thing. It belongs in every song that I play from now on." Shaking the head.
So were you more into pedals back then, or are you still are you a pedal guy?
Yeah, I was into pedals a lot. I thought that, it was really cool to sort of alter I grew up, uh, so I was obviously listening to Guns N' Roses and stuff like that, but actually like Jimi Hendrix, he was the type of person who's like, yeah, I'm gonna make my sound, it's gonna have this sound like a motorcycle crashing or something like that. Anything like that, anything that I could sort of do to alter and make it sound like not a guitar. And then they have these pedals that are like Electro Harmonics had like this like pedal that kind of made your guitar sound like an organ.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to sort of I don't know if you've gotten this up to this point, but I'm very pretentious and I always want for people to be like enamored with the things that I'm doing that are, hey, this is different. No one does
Mm-hmm.
that, and
Mm-hmm.
everybody does it. Um so that's kind of the approach that I wanted to take with my guitar. It's like, oh, it doesn't sound like a guitar. What is that? Oh,
Mm-hmm.
the guitar player, he's doing this with his guitar, which is at this point with not just guitar pedals, but because I plug in, I use amp sims. I'm
Mm-hmm.
doing all that stuff with all of like the, you know, crazy, effects plugins as well. So all of the modulators and all of the reverbs and
Yeah.
all of that stuff, I have like a big chain of stuff on my in my DAW as I'm playing into my setting. So, so I can get all that big stereo, like gooey goodness out of my speakers.
What do you know your guitar chain? I think I have a question somewhere in there. But
So yeah, I would say my guitar chain that I usually use beyond just like guitar, amp sim, like guitar DI, amp sim, out, etc. I typically, delays are great, and uh, I love doing either a ping pong or
mm-hmm.
having an offset left and right,
Okay.
where I'll offset the delay by just a little bit. You could do this. I mean, stock DI or stock delays do it
Yeah.
pretty readily, but I started doing it with like tape delays, like Waves JF or J37,
Mm-hmm.
um, Echo Boy from Sound Toys, like
Yeah, I like that.
just yeah, and Echo Boy is great because it's not only just like so. What's great about the Waves delay or the Waves tape is that it gives you like an EQ shape,
Mm-hmm.
right? So you basically just get your guitar sound is kind of sculpted a little bit so that
Mm-hmm.
you're not like getting those hissy, bits or whatever in your decay, as your sound is echoing. But Sound Toys kind of takes that to the next level, and they have all of these like little settings, so you can make it sound like a Benson, you can make it sound like a AM radio, you can make it sound like
Cool.
a, and so I mean, the choices are endless, and I mean that's such a crazy cool plugin. One of the other plugins I use a lot for that kind of stuff. There is one from a developer called Audiority,
Mm-hmm.
and they do this Benson Echo Rec,
Mm-hmm.
which was famous. Like Hendrix used it, Roger Waters used it, and someday I'm gonna cut you into little pieces. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and the or One of These Days is what it's called, sorry. And so, but the plugin is, it's got all the artifacts of all of like the stuff that they, you know, that Benson probably would have wanted for people to forget. And so there's all these different ways you can manipulate the sound and make it feed back into itself. So it just sounds like an audio mess. And for somebody who
Wow.
wants their guitar to sound like something completely different, I mean, it just sounds like a guitar player is having fun. That's basically what it sounds like. So
Well, that's good. That's
yeah.
good.
So yeah, so I don't do pedals as much only because like I'm playing as I play out, I play drums rather than guitars. But if I am playing out, I'll probably just have like a distortion pedal and a reverb and maybe a delay and just something to like get the sound to just sort of
Hmm.
expand a bit.